Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jose here with Diamond Ranks Media,
I'm Nick.
and we're here today covering the offseason and the MLB. Going to give you our take and our grades on all the offseason moves made by every team. We're going to start here with the Red Sox. And what do you got them doing, Nick?
So they lost Rick Porcello. They traded Sandy Leon to the Indians, and they acquired Martin Perez and Jose Peraza, who's a very good utility man.
My take on those moves, not bad. You have Leon, who was a very solid defensive catcher for them. The offense was never truly there. He had, spurts.
He had that one good year, yeah.
As for Peraza, I like the move. Peraza, back when he was in the Braves organization, was a top-ranked prospect. Was moved in a trade between Atlanta and Cincinnati. He had a year in Cincinnati where he was on his come-up, started to play really well, and then just kind of disappeared after that. I think being in Boston and with the team they have and having stars around him will help him, play a little better. And I think he'd be a great ad playing second base for Boston.
Yeah, he gives them depth too. Any position in the infield they need, he can do that.
And then, a big thing going on with the Red Sox right now is Mookie Betts trade rumors. And, what are you thinking on that? You're hearing a lot of Angels, a lot of Dodgers. I know the Braves were in the mix at one point. Where do you think he's going to head? And do they move him this offseason or do they wait?
I think the smartest thing to do is to move him in the offseason, get some kind of return, because you're never going to get the same return if they give him at a deadline, because there's only going to be a select few teams looking for a postseason push, and they're not going to get as much because it's only going to be 2 months. All they get if they don't move him is a draft pick for compensation, so I think the smartest thing to go is to trade him in the offseason.
Well, I agree with that. And then, you look into things with especially a player like Betts who's going to hit high for average. He's going to put the ball over the fence. He's going to make great defensive plays. And he brings so much to any organization that goes and gets him. Makes almost any team a competitor.
Exactly.
For me, I like the move to the Angels. Hearing a lot about, what would they get in return with that. I don't see them letting go of Joe Adele in order to add Mookie just because he's going to be another big piece to that outfield to tag along with Mookie and Trout. So what would you give Boston a grade for this offseason?
My grade for Boston would have to be a D+. They haven't really made too much moves. They haven't really acquired any big name beside for the couple guys, and they lost Porcello. So I'd give them a D+.
Moving forward, we're going to the Baltimore Orioles. The only moves they have on here, they just claimed Pat Valaika off waivers and lost VR to Miami. What's your opinion on Baltimore at this point in time?
Yeah, they're not going to probably move much from the 100 and something losses they got last year and the year before. They didn't get better, get worse really. I think they'll just stay steady. One of the worst teams in the league, honestly.
So what's your grade for them?
You gotta give them an F. They're just not really a competitor at all.
Moving forward, we're going to talk about the Yankees and their offseason. And what do they do this offseason, Nick?
Obviously, they acquired Garrett Cole. Big contract for a pitcher. But they did lose quite a bit of guys on the team. They lost Didi to the Phillies, Dellin Betances to the Mets, and Romine to the Tigers. They got rid of Jacoby Ellsbury. He's released. He could be signed by any team, so good for him. He can maybe stay healthy.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the Cole deal. Obviously, Yankees have been hot on Garrett Cole since he was in high school. Obviously, there was a draft pick, and he denied coming over. He wanted to go to UCLA, pitch in college, where he then got drafted by Pittsburgh, where the Yankees were trying to trade for him. But then Houston swooped in and grabbed him from New York. And they were, them and Pittsburgh at that time were a player apart, but now they finally got their guy. It was 9 years, $324 million contract. He's going to be making $36 million a year, and it's a risky deal. It does make them a definite lock in most people's books to win a World Series, but what do you think this contract brings to the team and some pros and cons?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Helps them with the World Series odds. Last year, going into the year, they led the odds, and now they've almost doubled for winning the World Series. So I think definitely every year it keeps getting talked about that this is the year, but honestly now they added the one thing they were missing was an ace. They had guys like Tanaka, Sevy, and Paxton who have the tools, struggled at times, haven't really had a definite ace. Paxton had a great second half, but now having Cole around them with the knowledge he was taught in Houston and also a new pitching coach from the Indians, I think this could be a great season for the Yankees.
But the losses come pretty big losses. Didi Gregorius being a left-handed bat is why it makes that so, such a crucial loss, as you have the short porch out there in right field, which the left-handed hitters take advantage of. And losing Dellin, they have a deep bullpen as is.
Yeah,
There's plenty of arms, but Dellin Betances was a big part of that. He was injured mostly all of last season, but he still was a big part of the 2017 run.
Yeah. But you do got to remember, they played, I think, less than 5 games with Betances on the team. So, really losing him, pretty similar bullpen to how 2019 went.
But with them losing him, that also helped them turn their eyes to Milwaukee closer Josh Hader, who has been rumored around. What do you feel it's going to take in terms of a package to get someone like Hader, and do you think Hader can transition from the National League to the American League?
I think Hader has all the talent in the world with the fastball that's just tough to read off his motion. I think they can. I really don't think they will get him. They're going to take a lot to be able to get him. I really don't think they have the tools in the minor league anymore. Maybe 3 years ago with the minor league they had, yeah, but with having unloaded prospects, hey, you never know. Maybe Miguel Andujar, Clint Frazier, throw in the deal. I don't think they'll keep both of those guys in the minors this year, so.
And then also another move, they lose Austin Romine to Detroit. Romine, who's been the backup catcher for the past several seasons, who has stepped up when Sanchez has went down and gotten hurt. Mm-hmm. He's played very solid defense, and last couple seasons you did see his offensive numbers take a step up. I mean, in my opinion, I see this as a big loss for New York because it's important to have 2 solid catchers, especially when you got a guy like Sanchez who you never know what his health status is going to be.
He's still yet to play a full season. And then with Romine, his offense, he was honestly the clear-cut best backup catcher in the league. You really couldn't argue with anybody else. Now they'll move Kyle Higashioka into that role. He's got the offense, but he struggles to hit. He has the power, he has his times where he doesn't do much.
So moving on from there, what's your grades for the Yankees?
You have to give him the A+ with getting Garrett Cole. That was just such a big deal for them. A+ easily.
All right, so moving on to the Blue Jays now. What do you have the Blue Jays marked up for this offseason?
They just added Hyunjin Ryu. They got Chase Anderson. They also signed Tanner Roark. So 3 of the biggest things they needed. One of them was obviously pitching. They had an offense last year led by Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette in the second half. They had all the young guys. Randall Grichuk really broke out. So,
well, you look at the Blue Jays, and they're a very interesting case. They have a very deep farm system in terms of offensive talent.
For sure, yeah.
A lot of guys on the way, and then you look at the third-generation stars that they're coming with. You got Kevin Biggio, you got Bo Bichette, and then on top of that, you have the infamous Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now, they've made the moves they needed to make, adding Ryu, adding 2 starters and a reliever. Travis Shaw, which I think can definitely bring some pop to that lineup.
Yeah, just a couple of years ago, he gave the Brewers 30 home runs, above 250 average. He has the bat. He's pretty good. He's pretty good on defense. He can give you third base or first base, even some second. So he gives them depth in multiple positions.
Do you think the Blue Jays have a potential to make a wild card push?
I don't know about this year. I definitely think in the near future that is a team that can be lethal, honestly, in the playoffs. Because with all the talent going to continue to develop, we get to see Bo Bichette in a full season. Vladdy Guerrero, pretty much a full season. Honestly, disappointed a lot of people with the high ceiling they gave him for what he could do. Getting to see a full season of all of them together, I think they could be very good.
All right, so what do you give the Blue Jays for your offseason grade?
I'd have to give them the B with all the moves they made. Nothing really bad about what they did.
Definitely
I like it.
Addressing needs.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so moving on, guys. We're going on to Tampa Bay. Couple losses, couple ads. You want to go over that for us, Nick?
Yeah, the biggest thing, they traded Tommy Pham to San Diego for Hunter Renfroe. I like the deal. Both teams gained something from it. Tommy Pham, great leader for the Rays. Gave them a good bat, great defense. Honestly, pretty similar with Hunter Renfroe. He gives you a good bat, a lot of power, especially going to a smaller stadium. And then he also gives you some defense, too, out there in left or right.
And I got to say, I like that move a lot. I do like Hunter Renfroe and what he does bring to Tampa. And I think this is a swap that complements both players and both teams strictly due to the ballparks they're getting ready to play in. Tommy Pham's a gap guy.
Yeah,
Tommy Pham can definitely pull the ball into the gaps. He's got enough speed to get, turn a lot of those gap shots into doubles and triples, especially being out there in Petco Park. And he does have raw power.
Yeah.
And his defense has gotten a lot better over the past few years. Then you take a guy like Renfroe coming to Tampa. Tampa is a team that lacked a lot of the home run ball. Now you add a guy like Renfroe who, I mean, when you're out in San Diego and playing out in the National League West and you're hitting 33 bombs in a single season, what are you going to do when you come to the American League and now you see Fenway 19 times a year, you see Yankee Stadium 19 times a year, and same for Baltimore.
Yeah.
So I think that brings it's going to do well for both the team and the player. I think this is honestly one of the smartest and well put together trades I've seen from two organizations. Any other moves going on? What are they? Some losses?
Yeah, they lost Travis d'Arnaud to the Braves. They lost Avisail Garcia to the Brewers, and he didn't have much of an impact, but Jesus Aguilar is now on the Marlins, so they lost a couple of their key guys. Travis d'Arnaud really broke out last year. Avi Garcia gives you a strong arm in that outfield and also great average numbers. So a couple losses there, and then they also added the Japanese left-handed bat, Satsugo, I believe his name is. Not quite sure.
So what are you giving the Rays for a grade?
I would give them a C-. They had some big losses, kind of hurt a little bit, but that Tommy Pham trade, I think it's a great deal. Also adding a big left-handed bat, C+, C-.
So all in all, just to round up on the American League East, definitely a clear cut on the teams that are trying to improve and go in the right direction and continue to strive to win ball games. And you definitely can clearly see who's getting ready to rebuild. So we're going to move forward to the American League Central. We're going to start here with the Chicago White Sox, who have had an interesting offseason. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Quite eventful. Started off with a quick deal. Not long after the postseason ended, they signed Yasmani Grandal. He bet on himself. Great job. He only signed a 1-year deal with the Brewers last offseason. Showed that he could prove himself to be a great catcher, one of the best in the league. Then he went to the White Sox and he got a 4-year deal from them. I think it's a great deal. James McCann started off really good last year. Struggled a lot in the second half. He was an all-star. Still gave them good numbers. He has pretty good defense. I like the deal. And then they also went on to add Edwin Encarnacion, big DH bat. Also gives Jose Abreu some time where he doesn't always have to play first. He can DH. They also added Nomar Mazara from the Rangers, he's only 24 years old. Still has potential. I like the deal. He really hasn't hit his stride yet in the major leagues. He's shown signs, but just hasn't done it. And then they also had some great pitching deals. They got Gio Gonzalez. They got Dallas Keuchel. So I like the deals they've made. That
Definitely
team's looking good.
Definitely looking like they're moving in the right direction. Needless to say, I mean, they see their opportunity with the American League Central's wide open at this point. You got Cleveland, who's looking to get rid of money and has gotten rid of Corey Kluber. You got the Royals, who really no one knows what direction they're trying to head in, as they haven't done much. So you got the White Sox, who see their opportunity to pounce, and they're doing just that. And to me, my favorite deal out of this is the Mazara deal, because Mazara is still young. He's a solid player. He did well out in Texas. He had a couple of years where you can see him start to climb up and begin to hit his stride. And I think he brings a lot. And when you have him around guys, veterans especially, like Edwin Encarnacion and Jose Abreu, I think you're going to see big things from him this year. And then adding Keuchel and Gonzalez, you're adding two solid lefty veterans. I mean, Keuchel sat out for most of the season last year, waiting for the contract he wanted. Went to the Braves and did great. He did fine. Didn't miss a beat. And then now coming over to Chicago, I think it adds something they need. And he proved he can pitch in the American League, as he was absolutely amazing with Houston. And then Gio Gonzalez, another one, is a bit of an interesting case. One of those deals that you just really don't know what direction it's going to go. He's a veteran guy. He's not a guy that's going to hit, light up the radar gun. He's not going to be throwing 98, 99 in an era of baseball where everything comes in hard. He's a finesse guy. We'll see what that brings to them. I just kind of hope we get to see Chicago break out and some of these young guys come up and do their thing. So what are you giving them for a grade?
I would definitely have to give them an A. With the deals they've made, the veteran pitchers they got, that was one of the biggest things they needed. With a lot of the younger guys like Carlos Rodon, Ronaldo Lopez, or returning Michael Kopech. Not much veteran presence in that rotation, so I like the deals. I'd give them an A.
So moving forward onto the Twins now. A couple moves there. They had signed Homer Bailey and Rich Hill. And they re-signed Jake Odorizzi and Michael Pineda. Your opinions on these moves?
I like the moves. The pitching, pretty lackluster. What honestly knocked them out of the postseason to the Yankees, they just really struggled pitching-wise. The offense is lethal. They have guys that can give you 30 home runs every year with the power they have with guys like Mitch Garver, Eduardo, and then also you have Nelson Cruz.
So, all in all, the Twins did what they had to do in terms of arms. They're trying to, definitely bolster up that rotation a bit. As that's one thing that definitely hurt them in the postseason last year after being swept by the Yankees. But moving on from that, I mean, what are you giving them for a grade, given the minimal amount of moves they've made this far?
I'd have to give them a B. A couple signings, pitching wise, they can't really be bad. They didn't spend a lot of money on Homer Bailey or Rich Hill. They're veterans. They could give you 30 starts in the season. You really don't know about them. Homer Bailey has had times where he struggled, and he's had times where he's looked great. Rich Hill, just absolute disgusting pitches he has. And then keeping Odorizzi and Pineda, I like those. I'd have to give them a B.
So definitely some interesting moves there that have potential to be very, very solid as the season continues. Moving on from there, we're going to go on to the Kansas City Royals, who have had kind of a quiet offseason. You want to tell us what they've done?
Yeah, they haven't done too much. They signed Michael Franco, pretty quiet deal. And then they also got Trevor Rosenthal, who I love the deal. He's not expensive. He was an all-star just a few years ago. He really lost everything he had going on when he missed one whole season.
Well, yeah,
it's really not a bad deal.
I mean, I like the Rosenthal deal, but I do also like the Maikel Franco deal. And Franco's a guy, when he came up with Philly, definitely had potential to be a leader. Never really filled the shoes that they thought he could. He's definitely a guy that has some raw power.
Oh, for sure.
And he's not terrible defensively. He's a pretty solid defensive third baseman all around. Do you think Maikel Franco's numbers come up here in Kansas City, or do you think this is just another move, just take a risk and see what happens?
You have guys on that team that they have guys that can just flat out hit. They got Jorge Soler, they got Whit Merrifield, so maybe being around some veterans like that, I think he can be good. I think that could really work for them. And then there are also rumors that they might lose Whit Merrifield too. They might be trading him somewhere. We'll have to see how that goes.
Well, it'll definitely be interesting because Merrifield's the type of player that can bring definitely a lot of different types of play to a team.
Oh, for sure. He's led the MLB in hits in the past 2 seasons. He's just a pure hitter.
So we'll have to stay tuned and see what happens with Merrifield and the Royals going forward. So what are you giving them for an off-season grade?
I'd give them a D+. Pretty quiet off-season so far.
Nothing really cementing what they're trying to do.
Exactly, yeah.
So moving on, we got the Cleveland Indians, and this one, quite interesting, because this is a team that just over the past few years has been competing in the playoffs year in, year out, had a run to the World Series, and so on. What are you taking away from this and what they're doing?
Yes, quite an out-of-nowhere deal, trading Corey Kluber, not even asking for much back. Only got a couple of prospects, not even high up in their system.
And that's what makes that trade interesting. You got a guy like Kluber who, just a couple years ago when they were trying to trade him, had teams throwing talent at them like it was nothing, and they just kind of turned it the other way and said, no, thank you, we're going to hold on to him. Coming in, it's not like he had a terrible year. This guy is constantly in the Cy Young, talks and so on. Oh, yeah,
for sure. He struggled with injuries this year. When he was healthy, not much. He didn't do very good, but obviously we've seen he's a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. Unbelievable pitcher. I think the Rangers did definitely get a good deal out of this.
And then other than that, they also signed Cesar Hernandez, who spent the past few years with Philly and has been a very solid contact hitter. I mean, in my opinion, this could bring definitely some upside into Cleveland's offseason, as he's a guy who can put the bat on the ball.
For sure.
You put him around guys like Lindor and now also Franmil Reyes. What do you think they can get out of this?
Cesar Hernandez is a great second baseman. I really like the deal. They didn't cost them too much. He's just a good pure hitter. He gives some pretty good defense, and he can run. He's quick down the base path, so I like it.
So what do you give Cleveland for your offseason grade?
With the weird Kluber deal, just out of nowhere, I'd have to give them a D. Lost their best pitcher, and then they also had just lost Trevor Bauer. They traded him at the deadline, so I don't see much from this team next year.
So moving on from there, we're going to touch up on the Detroit Tigers, which is another interesting case. This is another team that is in a rebuild process, kind of trying to do what they can do just to try to put some people in seats.
Yeah.
So what do they do this offseason, Nick?
They signed quite a few names, actually. They signed C.J. Cron, great power-hitting first baseman. They also got Jonathan Scope, who just a couple years ago put up an MVP caliber season. They also got Austin Romine from the New York Yankees. He's a great catcher who will obviously move up into the starter role for them. Then they also signed Zach Godley, pitcher from the Arizona Diamondbacks, who won't be a front-of-the-line guy, but he can definitely be a solid four-hole in your rotation.
Well, I like this, and I like what Detroit has going on. Now, if you look down in the farm system, they got Casey Mize on his way up, and this kid is just absolutely filthy. He's got the potential to be up there once he hits his prime with guys like Verlander and Cole.
For sure.
What they added here, you add a veteran backstop who was just absolutely phenomenal behind the plate, and his offensive numbers have only gotten better as he's went on, and Austin Romine. And then you look at a guy like Jonathan Scope. I mean, he's had a down year the last couple of years, but he's a very solid second baseman. He still has the potential to be a breakout star. He can definitely has the talent to do something. And then you got C.J. Cron, who is someone I like. And the reason why I like C.J. Cron is he's a guy that can move the ball to all sides of the field. So yeah, but Cron definitely, good at putting the bat on the ball, moving the ball around the field. He's another one, his time in Tampa, he did really well. You definitely see the numbers come up when he left the Angels, and then when he went over to Minnesota last season, he had a phenomenal year as well.
Oh, for sure. Very lefty killer. Very good at that.
Then as for Scope, again, touching back on that, average has dropped, but the power numbers have stayed where they are. And could you see an opportunity for the average to climb here for Scope, playing in a ballpark such as Comerica?
Yeah, he's never been in such a big ballpark as that. He was playing in Camden Yards. Always a very consistent infielder. He did good for them. Broke out in 2017, had a great year, and then he went to Minnesota. The average, yeah, it's dipped a little bit, but the power's still there. He still gives them good production. He's a great defender with a very strong arm. Can play second, short, and third base, so I like the move.
So with that being said, what do you give the Tigers for your offseason grade?
I'd give them a C+. I really still don't see them being a contender. They don't have the full tools of the team. They don't have much pitching-wise. I'd give them that a C+.
All right, so moving forward from there, we're going to touch up on the AL West. We're going to start here with the Texas Rangers. We just kind of touched up on that when speaking about the Indians. Nick, you want to go ahead and let the guys know what
Yeah,
you're talking about?
Clearly acquired Corey Kluber in the offseason. They also got Kyle Gibson, who's a solid pitcher. They also acquired Adolis Garcia, not as much talked about. He didn't really play much in the MLB last year, but in the minor leagues he slashed to .250, which is pretty good. He also gave them 32 home runs in the AAA last year, which is very good to see. I think the Rangers could use him in the major leagues this year. We'll have to see how it goes.
Texas definitely, getting ready to go into the new ballpark. Definitely looking to make moves and try to fill that stadium up. There was also, I know, some rumors for a little bit there about them getting Josh Donaldson. They were trying to make a push for him. I definitely think if they were to acquire Donaldson, that could definitely be a big help for that team.
Oh, for sure.
But I think Texas really focused on what they truly needed, and that was some pitching to help out Mike Minor in that rotation.
Yeah, and then they also got Wellington Castillo, who filled a void they kind of lost with Robinson Chirinos going to the Astros. A lot of power that he can bring. He's a very solid hitter. Struggles a little bit on the defensive end, but he gives them quite a good offense behind the plate.
So what are you giving the Rangers for your offseason grade?
I'd have to give them a B+. I like all the moves they made. They're really helping out the team. They've struggled recently. They have the tools to be quite a good team, though. I like what they've done.
So moving on from there, we're going to the Houston Astros. Now, this is an interesting case. A lot of different things going on there in that organization. Let's just start off with what they've done this offseason, and then we'll get into the other things.
Yeah, obviously we all know they lost Garrett Cole, arguably one of the best pitchers in the league. That's obviously going to take a big hit on the rotation. But they also will be regaining Lance McCullers during this season, who honestly got forgotten about with how good that rotation was last year. Just imagine what they could have done with him. And they also re-signed Martin Maldonado, who is unbelievable behind the plate. Man can call a good game for any pitcher in the league. Struggles a little bit offensively, can give you a little bit of power sometimes, but not much on the offensive side.
And then also with that, they traded Jake Marisnick to the Mets, which interesting move. I mean, the Astros already had a lot of outfield depth.
Yeah,
so
he was really just getting lost in that outfield. Seemed like a great clubhouse guy. He was a fan favorite, but they just really didn't need him anymore.
Also, so let's get into the big offseason controversy with this organization. This is a team that everyone's seen and just was shocked by how well they played. And, you had a lineup where 1 through 9, they could just flat out rake. And, obviously coming after the World Series, big news broke out about them using cameras and stealing signs from teams. There was biggest one being the video with Danny Farquhar facing Evan Gattis, where you could clearly hear the banging coming from the dugout based on what pitch was being thrown. I mean, what do you think is going to come out of this whole controversy? What's your opinion on what should be done?
I really don't like what they've done. Like, that is just despicable for what they've done to the game. Stealing signs, standing on second base is one thing. It's part of the game. But when you need to add a camera in the outfield, that annoys me. That's just ruining the game. And it really shows with how good that offense has been. What can they really do without it now? Because who knows how that offense could fall off. Maybe they continue to be good. Who knows?
And it continues to raise questions. 2017, a young Yankees team, one of the teams that wasn't really supposed to make the run they did.
Yeah.
Played their heart out, brought them to Game 7 and, lost it in 7. I mean, could have this been done? If Astros don't have those cameras out there, do the Astros win?
Yeah,
I think that's what the big thing is for me here is you took a potential championship away from multiple teams. And, obviously every team has a championship window, and you minimized that, but you had to cheat in order to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And then you also got to remember that team, the Astros, from the year 2016, even 2015 to 2017, the strikeout numbers really dropped quite a bit, which obviously could be helped with the camera being out there. And then you also got to remember there were 7 different pitchers who had horrible starts against Houston and lost their spot on teams because of it. So that is just upsetting for them. I would have to give them a D- for this offseason. They haven't really done much. They lost their biggest starter.
And the controversy certainly doesn't help that situation.
Not at all.
So moving on from there, we go to the Oakland Athletics, who's made a couple of interesting moves, and you want to let us know what's going on there?
Yeah, they traded Jerks and Profar to the Padres. Not too bad of a deal. They got some in return. And then they also re-signed Jake Diekman, who's a solid reliever. Throws absolute gas, pretty good pitches. And then Blake Trinan also opted to go into free agency and was signed by the Dodgers, so that's a big hit to their bullpen.
Definitely another one with an interesting case. Blake Trinan, prior to this past season, had a great year out of the closer role.
Unbelievable.
Really reinvented himself out there in Oakland. And it comes in last year and just couldn't seem to gain any traction.
Yeah. The ERA rose quite a bit from 2017. Obviously, you couldn't expect him to do what he did that year. Again, nobody's expecting him to put up another .7 ERA, but for it to raise up above a 4, that's rough.
So what do you give the Athletics for your offseason grade all in all?
I'd have to give them a D-. Haven't really added much. Same thing, pretty similar to the Astros. Lost a couple guys. Minor moves made.
And you think they would, seeing how they were right there to making a playoff run. But they were in the wild cards, so.
Yeah, they looked great up until the wild card game. Just really couldn't get anything going. Tough way to end the season.
So moving forward from there, we jump into the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. This has been an interesting offseason, to say the least, for them. This coming off of, last season, Mike Trout getting the huge extension. Obviously, they'd love to bring a championship and put a ring on Trout's finger. What moves have they made to try to make that push?
Biggest signing they made, obviously, Anthony Rendon. Huge deal for him. Well deserved. Went very underrated for a while. Put up consistent numbers every year and just was not talked about as much as he deserved. And then they also got a new manager, Joe Madden. Unbelievably good manager. Smart guy. I like that move. Dylan Bundy now, they got him. They also got Julio Teheran on the team, who are both consistent starters. Dylan Bundy never really had a team around him to show how good he could possibly be. I like that move. So, pitching.
And I definitely like what the Angels have done here. As soon as Cole signed with the Yankees, they jumped right to grab Rendon. And third base has been a hole for the Angels for a little while now. And I definitely think Rendon, say a pretty good plug there.
For sure.
definitely a guy with a great bat, moves the ball around all sides of the field, so was a very good RBI guy and did do well with home runs last year out in Washington. But I think the biggest thing is Joe Madden. You're taking a manager who has taken several teams for playoff pushes, won a World Series with the Cubs, almost won a couple with the Rays. You're looking at a guy who's just been phenomenal throughout his managerial career and has helped players revive themselves and help some players put solid careers together. But the biggest moves that I'm really intrigued by as I sit there and look at him was the Dylan Bundy and Teheran move. And reason being is they obviously needed pitching. Cole went to the Yankees. After at that point, they just kind of turned their attention to kind of getting a bargain and saving some money after the Rendon deal. Do you think Bundy and Teheran take a step forward here in Los Angeles?
I definitely believe Dylan Bundy will be a great ad for them. Julio Teheran, pretty similar to how the Braves team was. They had a good offense, not much pitching, so I think he could be good. I think he'll pretty much stay consistent to what his numbers have been. And then they also lost Justin Bour, who's on his way to Japan with quite a bit of other MLB stars going to Japan this year.
Justin Bour, it's kind of interesting because it's not like he, was an absolutely horrendous player. He had power. He wasn't a guy, obviously, you're going to, make your marquee franchise piece, but definitely could have found a spot to play somewhere else. Do you think, over time he comes back from Japan and comes back to play in the MLB, or do you think this is a move strictly for the career?
Hey, look what happened for Eric Thames. He struggled in his first run in the MLB. He went to Japan, and look at the absolute monster he became. Put up stupid numbers in Japan, came back, made a name for himself. Brewers are looking pretty good with him, so who knows? Justin Bour just barely missed out at being an All-Star in 2017. Put up great numbers that year. Struggled quite a bit last year, so I think Japan will really work well for him.
So, all in all, what are you going to give the Angels for your offseason grade?
I'd give them a B+. I like the moves they've made. Pretty smart with what they've done.
So moving on from there, we're going to touch up on the Seattle Mariners and another team out there in the West that's just kind of head-scratching to the moves they're making. You want to go ahead and tell us to what they did?
Yeah, typical Mariners fashion, they make a star, such as Omar Narvaez. He had a great year offensively. I like what he did, and then they traded him away. They also acquired Carl Edwards Jr. Yeah, so the Carl Edwards deal, not very much there. He struggles with control, but absolute gas. Pretty good pitches. He can be good in that bullpen with the loss of Edwin Diaz over the last season.